occasionally we see many things that are taking place that we could deem as things that are not overcomable. But God, we just want to stand in agreement tonight in this place, in this space, that it gives us an opportunity to bond together, to band together, to organize in a stronger way, to be more resilient and to have our minds made up, to speak up and to speak out and to get to work. Remind us that we have work to do and that we can make a difference. Give us hope that things will and can get better and that you are using us at this moment. We thank you for those who have joined us on tonight. And we ask, God, that you would give us ears that listen, hearts that show or are willing to show compassion and minds that comprehend. We ask this in the name of Almighty God and my Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and
Hey, Pastor Manny. What happened to Pastor Manny? Okay, we gonna go ahead and start. My name is Valerie Jeffers again. I'm a sub for Pastor Manny T. Oh, here you come. Oh,
can you hear me now?
yes.
All right, sorry about that.
That's all right.
As we get started tonight, I'm going to ask if our wonderful panelists who have agreed to be with us tonight for this conversation would introduce themselves. Want to make sure from that, first of all, that you all know, let me just give some opening remarks about Justice and Beyond. We have been doing this organizing collectively, organizing other organizations together to do this work for 10 years. For those of you who know about Justice and Beyond, you know that we've gone through many changes over the last primarily 5 years, but we're still at the work. We're still doing the work, engaged most certainly in different ways, but certainly doing the work that we've always done and will continue to do it. We've been meeting on this platform, that is Zoom, since the pandemic. We find it in ways easier to get more people to show up in terms of our guest panelists, to get the word out through social media, and to just invite guests that may not be local. And so we will continue to do it this way, especially as we see numbers rise and other sorts of illnesses that people are having. Our organization is led and directed by what we call pillars. Those pillars lead the organization. There are people or organizations themselves that have just signed on to do the work of organizing and vision casting and planning for Justice and Beyond. If you want to be a pillar, just let us know. Put that in the chat and say, hey, I want to be a pillar. I want to show up on Tuesdays by the same Zoom at 12 to be about the planning of Justice and Beyond. With that said, we cover topics like this every Monday that we meet at 5 o'clock, and just to educate so that we can get organized and do the work in a better way. So with that said, again, welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here on tonight. Let me ask Valerie, do you see all of our panelists that said that they would be here or are here at this moment?
No, I don't see Ronald Coleman, the president of the NAACP New Orleans branch. I don't see him, but I do see our NAACP president of Louisiana, our AXO chair, that's the youth, and our attorney, Miss Victoria. So, but right. I don't see Ronald.
Okay, maybe you could send Ronald a text message and give him a nudge.
Yeah, right. I did.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to ask, let's see. We'll start with Mr. Michael McClanahan. We're so glad that you're here, my friend. Would you just tell us a little bit about who you are, what your job is as it relates to NAACP, and why you're excited to be here tonight? Please, Mr. Michael.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank Justice and Beyond for hosting such a fine panel of experts, man, to come and talk about past, present, and future. I am the NAACP Louisiana State Conference president, I coordinate activities between about 40 adult branches and 18 youth and college chapters throughout the state of Louisiana, but also serve on the national board as a director. And I'm familiar with Justice Beyond because I've done a lot of work over the years with Justice Beyond. We've marched a lot of highways with you all, but I've also broken bread at your church, Reverend Man, and I'm glad to see that you all are still a pillar in the community, especially in the now times, man. I can imagine what it was like then because I'm not that old. but I know what we're faced today, so I'm glad to be a part of this conversation and hope it reaches more people so they can become a part, not only of the conversation but the work that we all do.
Thank you, Michael. It's so good to see you, my friend. Good to be with you. Yes. Very good. We'll hear more about your work and what you're doing a little bit more. Especially want to hear about what we're seeing with the youth and how to get them connected in this season of not only just in NAACP but the world and what's happening. How do we get those youth engaged? So we'll hear more about that. Let me introduce to you Mr. James Gray, that we're just so excited to be here on tonight. Brother Gray, tell us about your work with NAACP.
Okay, I have my mic going.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
I'm the youth coordinator generally of the Orleans chapter, but I'm also the co-chairman of the AXO program for the NAACP. For those of you who don't know, and I didn't know until I was ordered to take over as co-chairman, what AXO was, but it's African American Cultural, Technical, and Scientific Olympics. It is a competition for kids in 33 academic categories. And I say academic, it includes singing, dancing, writing music, but public speaking, science, architecture, business. There are 33 categories included. For the last 3 years, I've been the chairman. 3 years ago, we got 130 or so kids to get involved in the competition. We went to national. We won 1 medal. We were overjoyed and proud. Last year, we got 150 kids involved, and we took 18 winners to nationals. And nationals, we won 7 places out of probably 80 for the whole country. So we got almost 10% of the wins for the United States of America. We did better than any other chapter in the United States of America. And indeed, the president of the national commended us for that and the good work that New Orleans is doing. And I say New Orleans, in all honesty, I should say Louisiana, because there are only a few active chapters in the state. Because of that, we've opened our doors to any kid in the state who wants to participate. One of our national winners was from Hammond, for example, last year. This year, we have we have 215 kids who've signed up this year. And we have a few from Baton Rouge, a number of them from on the river between here and Baton Rouge, even though the overwhelming majority of the kids are from New Orleans. But it's a great experience. The kids, if they make it to the Nationals, and this year the Nationals is going to be, of course, in Las Vegas, a couple of days before the national meeting for the NAACP. Our kids will compete with kids from all over the country in those academic disciplines. There are 33 of them. And we think we're going to prove again, as we proved last year, that kids out of Louisiana, about the smartest kids in the country. We did very, very well. They're going to do very, very well again this year. And to me, part of the lesson to be learned is we spend a lot of time talking about what's wrong with us and what we're not doing and what's wrong with our children. And the truth of the matter is our children are amazing and they are doing amazing things. I often talk about that. I know I'm getting long, but in our local competition last year, where we had 150 kids competing in academic pursuits, 3 kids hijacked a car and killed the lady. The news talked about those 3 kids all day, all week, while we had 150 hardworking, talented kids fighting for a chance to go to the national competition to meet other smart kids from all over the country. And we couldn't get the news to mention us. Now, I'm not overly angry with the news because I think that's who they are. I'm angry with us to the extent we don't realize that our children, for the most part, are great. There are many of them doing great things. We need to help them do more great things. And we ought to talk about the great ones and not spend so much of our time talking about the unusual ones who end up on the news. Well, that's
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Well said, Mr. Gray. We appreciate that. That is several excellent points, and I'm sure that's information that a lot of people just did not know about that tremendous work that these youth are doing and how incredibly successful and skilled and educated that they are. It is a story that should be told. And so we hope to hear more about that. I'll have some questions about that, of course. Want to introduce to you as well, Victoria Wenger. We're so happy, Miss Victoria, for you to be here with us tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with NAACP?
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for letting me join this conversation and for being in community with each of you, even if virtually. My name's Victoria Wenger. I'm an attorney with the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. You can call us the Legal Defense Fund, or LDF for short. I've been at LDF for the last 4 or 5 years of my career, but LDF has been around for over 80 years, initially as part of the NAACP, and then later a separate nonprofit organization where we carry on the same history and mission of supporting and advancing the rights of Black people across the United States. I have the distinct pleasure of really centering most of my litigation work, which is predominantly in voting rights in the state of Louisiana. I work at our national office, but my heart is truly in Louisiana because I've been able to represent incredible clients, including the state conference of the NAACP, including folks like Dr. Dorothy Nairn, who I see on this call right now, in matters to propel and equalize voting rights for communities across the state, whether that was back during COVID to secure the extension of early voting days and expansion of vote by mail opportunities, but most recently in a multi-year battle for fair maps and fair districts. So very excited to talk about some of the developments in those cases, the opportunities that they provide for mobilizing and empowering voters at the ballot box, not only this year, but in many years to come. So thank you again for including me in this great conversation.
Thank you, Tori. We appreciate you being here and look forward to hearing more from you during this conversation. Valerie, did we get Mr. Ronald Coleman yet? She may not be there. Valerie, if we
No,
do.
sir. No, sir. I have not.
Okay. We'll just hold tight.
Okay.
Panelists, again, thank you for being here. Let's go back to the foundation, if you will, of NAACP in the state of Louisiana. And if you look at significant benchmarks and what was taking place since the inception in the state of Louisiana, what are some things that those who have tuned in tonight should really be educated about and know about the work if we were to just go back several decades or more to the beginning of NAACP? Just tell us what are those significant benchmarks and triumphs and maybe even adversities that NAACP has come through in the state of Louisiana. Let's start with you, Mr. Michael McClanahan.
Okay. Again, good afternoon. Well, the NAACP in Louisiana has been around for over 80 years, and nationwide we've been around since 1909. One of the oldest association branches Two of the oldest association branches are in Orleans. One is the Orleans branch, and the other is the Shreveport branch. They've been around since the beginning. And the reason we were started because we were started by majority white folks. The two blacks on the founding members. One was W.B. Du Bois. I can't think the sister's name, but because of the lynching, because the lynchings that would happen of black folks throughout the country. Now, if you fast forward, that lynchings have taken place still, but they don't take place with a rope. They take place because of injustice done in the educational system, healthcare system, injustice done to black folks in redlining, affordable housing, and you look at the criminal justice system, the criminal legal system. Those are the things that have happened to us without the rope, right? And so the NAACP has been fighting. And everyone knows one of our most astute fighters was Thurgood Marshall, the first black to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court. And so throughout the years, we have rallied and marched all up and down the highways and byways of this country. And Louisiana is no different. My predecessor, Dr. Ernest Johnson, led and others with NAACP made a 50,000 man march on Governor Mike Foster a couple of years ago. We spearheaded the march in Gina. And so we've been around. We are a name that people can trust, and that will take up the mantle and fight till victory is won. Today's time, I was the Baton Rouge branch president when Afton Stern was murdered. We organized some of the biggest marches, the biggest action, direct action in the history of the state of Louisiana, right here in Baton Rouge under my leadership. We've gotten some legislation passed because as a result of that murder, but there's still a lot of work to do. What I like to think and like to say too is that because the devil is always present, we're always present. We're always recruiting because we know members are the lifeblood of the NAACP. The NAACP is a brand now. We have a world name. We have a name that resonates in all homes, all families. I get calls all the time for the work that we do, and it's predicated on members. No matter where they at, we have the 64 parishes in the state of Louisiana. We almost have a branch in every parish. We're represented, and people know the call on the NAACP. And we're over the last couple of years now. We have a slogan that says, "When we fight, we win." And I like to say we win because we have the laws on our side. The black letter laws, whatever it is, and we have the law. We have the best lawyers this side of heaven. And you all know you will meet Victoria in a few minutes. But she's part of the team that we have come to rely on that will fight anywhere, anybody, bring it on in the court of law. And we have achieved a lot of victories. Even we stared defeat in the mouth, we still came out with the victory. So, and then we have the Lord on our side. God Almighty tells us to go out and fight and he'll fight our battle. But he said, go out and fight because we're doing his work. And he would not leave us nor forsake us. So when I go into these low-down towns, and when I go into these blood-infested waters, or wherever they may be, I stand proud knowing that I have the law, the lawyers, and the Lord on my side. And when I walk out victorious. If I don't walk out victorious, you've been in a fight, right? Whatever you had going on, you start to change those thoughts because you know that we're going to come back. And I like to say that we're going to fight till hell freezes over, and we'll fight on the ice. That's just how bad we are. And so in today's times, I was down at the legislature. It's a two-part answer. I was at the legislature because the governor has called a special session to deal with crime, and a lot of the things that he has on his roll call dealt with people of color, disadvantaged people. And we're just not going to let him have his way. We're not going to let those low-down legislators have their way because, one, they should know this. They should know that we filed suit and we're winning ridiculous because because the law says we need to have more black legislators. in that building. And so we're winning at that. Once we have that in place, they no longer have a super majority. And we're going to continue to fight, man. I'm telling you, I have some great people. We've had some great partners like Justice Beyond. And we fight these fights all over. We fought environmental justice up and down Cancer Alley. And I remember they brought a team of people down. We were in, I want to say, James, fighting Formosa. And we came away. As a matter of fact, I talked to Sharon Levine, and you all know that Formosa halted building the largest plastic plant in the world. In the world. We halted that because we understood that we can't do it by ourselves as NAACP, but we brought in every environmental partner this side of heaven, and that they came from all walks of life because they know that the bad environment that those chemical plants do are killing people. They are taking away our way of life. They're taking away livelihoods. They're taking away the land that our forefathers came and struggled and cleared away and built homes and schools and hospitals. They were trying to take that away in the name of profit. Well, we want to know that we serve a prophet, and the prophet that we serve, basketball. They told us that they not no longer build that plant. So those are the things we're doing. And then I like to say that there are two things that, of all the other things that we fight, there are two things that I've taken the mantle on. One is education. We know that America and Louisiana specifically has taken and put our education system in a dump. Our kids and our future suffer. So at every given time, you see us fighting these low down school systems. Some of the school systems are part of a desegregation lawsuit, and some of them have been going on since 50 and 60 years. It goes to show you the extent how low down these superintendents and school board members are to tan away at the fabric of Black America. And we know we've all been taught. And I know in my home, you're either going to get an education, go to the Army, or go to Job Corps. And so most everybody I know went to get an education. The other thing that we have been fighting is voting. You know, people like to quote Dr. King, but one of the best quotes that he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, "Give me the ballot. So if you give me the ballot, all my problems will be solved." And I like to think that if we get out and vote the way we should, we can get rid of the mayor or the state representative or the governor that's not doing us any good. And so we have to continue to encourage one another to go out and vote, because not only when we fight, we win, but when we vote, we win.
All right. Thank you, my friend. We appreciate that very in-depth description of victories and where NAACP has been over the years and its focus now, and what the focus has been in the past. I'm going to ask Tori, if you jump in here. What have we seen over the last 80 years in the past with NAACP, and primarily the work that you're doing around redistricting and voter rights? What have we seen that change and that work develop over the last 80 years as we focus on the past work of NAACP?
Certainly. So when I kind of try to describe the work of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund to folks who are less familiar, I often start by, explaining that LDF was the team of lawyers that brought the Brown v. Board of Education litigation, and that paved the way to desegregate our school systems and truly set us on a path towards more integration and equality in our country. I think as a young person myself, in thinking about Louisiana's role in this history and where LDF and the NAACP merged, some of my first exposure to our civil rights history was as a really little girl reading the story of Ruby Bridges and understanding that, that was a story of a young girl that was just trying to get an education. At the time was the same age I was when I was reading that book, and understanding later in life that this all took place in Louisiana, that we're still connected in this history, and LDF is still fighting desegregation cases in Louisiana where Ruby Bridges still lives on today. And we're so connected in this history through these organizations, through these generations who continue to carry on these batons. And whether that's through LDF's continued work on our education pillar, our efforts around ensuring that the criminal legal system is less discriminatory, especially in a state like Louisiana that has some of the highest rates of incarceration in the world, in our fights for economic justice and making sure that, kids have access to, food during summer and when schools are out of session, and then finally coming to voting rights and the work that, I am focused on most specifically. What has been so resonant in the fight for fair maps following the 2020 census is how closely it's tied to our prior battles for fair maps. When we look at the composition of the Supreme Court, which I know is very important to Justice and Beyond in your history and legacy and organizing work, the litigation that led to right now the single majority Black Supreme Court district in the state, that was a battle fought by LDF, the Chisholm line of cases, and that is a consent decree that we are still fighting to defend in the federal courts, that we are anticipating arguing to defend in front of the full Fifth Circuit in the months ahead. So we are looking at cases that have built off of our prior cases. Our sister organization, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, is right now representing the NAACP, President McClanahan, and all those members in separate litigation under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, now trying to push for a second majority Black Supreme Court district. At the same time, I'm involved in 2 other cases under that same area of law, Section 2, which, members of LDF helped, be the architects of when it was in its policy conceptions, when LDF, fought for and represented the foot soldiers in Selma to try to get the VRA passed to begin with. And now we continue to fight for its future. But we have now also recently succeeded in efforts under the Voting Rights Act, under Section 2, to fight for a second majority Black congressional district, which the legislature finally took the instructions of the court and acted to implement in January. And just in recent days, we got another victory from the federal courts in our challenge, Nairn v. Landry, for Dr. Dorothy Nairn and our other clients, including the NAACP in that case, in calling for more representation in the state legislature, which President McClanahan alluded to. We filed litigation saying there is a sufficient Black population in this state that lives close enough to each other that is very easy and, in fact, requisite to draw at least 3 more Black majority Senate districts for the state Senate and 6 more Black majority districts for the House of Representatives. That's 9 more advocates elected from a voting population that's majority Black, that they are accountable to, that they have to campaign before and follow through on promises to, for the state legislature. Imagine what that would have meant in these days ahead for this special session on crime, what it means for efforts to draw fair maps, to enact voting policies that actually pull people into our democracy rather than dilute and discourage their participation. So truly, the generations of people who have preceded me as attorneys for LDF, but really at the end of the day, the clients, the people on the ground who have been brave enough, to walk into schools in the days of desegregation, to step into courtrooms and share their story and sit on that stand and lend their name to these cases like Robinson v. Landry or Nairn v. Landry. It's truly powerful to witness this history right now, but to understand the decades and decades and decades of those who marched before us, on those who fought in the courts before us, and on those who, stood with the NAACP, with the Legal Defense Fund, and hopefully will stick with us in the rising generation and carrying on these fights moving forward.
Wow, thank you, Tori. That was an incredible recounting of the history of NAACP and reminding us, thank you so much, of reminding us of who we stand on the shoulders of, Brown versus the Board of Education and Ruby Bridges and bringing us into the future. If someone could please mute their phone, if everybody in attendance can mute their phone, that'd be great. but also reminding us of the possibilities of today and what we could do. Let me say this too, and just in case anything happens, we always have to be mindful, especially in conversations like these that center around topics such as NAACP and the great work that is done. There will be people that may try to Zoom bomb us. If at any time that we get Zoom bombed during this meeting, we will shut everything down. We ask that you would just get right back on, because we will have eliminated the problem and found the source of it, and made sure that person didn't get back in. So just we'll shut everything down and come back on at that moment. Let me ask Mr. James Gray if you would give us just your thoughts about where NAACP has been over the past 80 years, and especially the work with youth and how you have seen that develop over time.
Well, let me just say a couple of things. First of all, I'm looking at the pictures, and I don't know if people are cheating on their pictures, but judging from the pictures, I might be one of the oldest people on this call. If someone corrects me and they say their memory goes further back than mine, that's fine. But the NAACP, and I'm going to get to the youth, we need to remember that the great bus boycott in Alabama, 1956, was really based on the bus boycott in Baton Rouge in 1953. And the NAACP was the leader in that when Reverend T.J. Jemison organized that. That was organized by the NAACP. The Legal Defense Fund, which has really handled most of the big pieces of legislation in the civil rights era since Brown v. Board of Education. We should all know that Thurgood Marshall raised money to get the Legal Defense Fund started. And when he raised money, he got it primarily from the Masons. And the Masons in Louisiana, along with the NAACP, contributed more money than any other group except Georgia. Some years we were number one. Georgia was number one more than that. But we contributed more money here in Louisiana than New York, Alabama, Georgia, every other place except Georgia. So, and while the Masons were the main ones collecting that money, the NAACP was very much involved in that effort when they were starting the Legal Defense Fund. Now, having said all of that, the AXO program is a 40-year-old program, and I've been a member for more than 40 years, but I was like most people, I pay my dues, never go to a meeting, never pay attention, until about 2 or 3 years ago. Ronald Coleman, I had a reputation of working with kids, but my reputation was in track and field. But he said, James, you're good with kids, go work on this, and we worked on it. But there are a bunch of people who come and said, I'm interested, I want to do it. And I would say for any of our programs, you ask, what is the NAACP doing? The question ought to be, I want to do something. Where can I go work? Because the NAACP has thousands of programs that are needing more people to come and do something. But we've gotten a good group of people to work on the AXO program. It's called an Academic Olympics. There are 32 categories. And as I say, this year we have over 215 entries. But that's really the tip of the iceberg, because there are more than that, maybe 2 or 3 times that many kids who are trying to get themselves straight to enter the competition. And all of those kids benefit even if they never formally enter the competition. But that's just one thing that we're doing. Is we claim it's the Orleans chapter, but I just admitted that we are drawing kids from much of South Louisiana. And the truth of the matter is, that's an effort that should be going on all over the state. Every one of you need to say, I can help. I can either help what they're doing in Orleans, or I can go start a program somewhere else. Because the way the national office works, we can only send one person in each category. So we have a great kid from Baton Rouge and a great kid from New Orleans. Only one of them can go to nationals if the New Orleans chapter is the only one running the program. So the program really expands if other chapters get started and operate. And we are happy with what we're doing now. Incidentally, I say we have over 200 kids involved. If we get 32 or 33 winners, because there are 33 categories, we're going to have to figure out a way to send 33 kids to Las Vegas for about a 5-day trip. And I say we would have to figure out how. We know how to do it. We have to find the money to do it. And some of you thinking about all that money you have sitting in your bank account you don't know what to do with, you can help. Some of you have friends with money and you can help. But if we have our way, and if we get a winner in each of the 33 categories, that's 33 kids we have to send to Las Vegas, Nevada, to spend 5 nights in a hotel, eat for 5 days, and incidentally to get there and get back. That's a big effort. Our state chair helped us last year. Our local chapter helped us last year. But it's a lot of money, and it's a big effort. And we need the help. And then I will also say this. While the Legal Defense Fund is generally the leader on the big pieces of legislation, you ought to know that there's a lot of little pieces of legislation that is not concentrated on by the Legal Defense Fund. A lawyer in Baton Rouge who just died this year, within the last calendar year, and in fact, he was a fellow with the Legal Defense Fund. Nelson Taylor is a lawyer who handled the suit at the local level to get the first Black elected to anything in Hammond, in Port Allen. We talked about all those school cases. Nelson probably has handled more school cases than anyone else. I know more than anyone else in the state, and I doubt if anyone else in the country has handled more individual school cases than Nelson Taylor. And all of that was done. He was a fellow with the NAACP, which meant they not only gave him legal help, but to start with, they gave him books, gave him a little stipend for a secretary and an office, and much of what the first, I can't remember all the names now, but the first Blacks elected in most of the cities in the state were the result of a lawsuit brought by someone with the support of the NAACP. Now, it would have happened anyway. I once asked somebody, was it the Times or was it you? And they said it was them. Well, I think the world was changing, but it needed someone on the point. I think the world's going to continue to get better, but we need someone out front leading the charge.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We appreciate that, Mr. Gray. But I do want to touch on a couple of things that you brought up, so that people know, and this leads us into somewhat into that area of the present. How is NAACP funded?
I don't know. You have to ask state chairman and Ron. You asked me how AXO is funded.
Well, I'm just wanting to know about the full funding of NAACP. So maybe
that's Mike answering that.
Yeah, President McClanahan.
Well, you know, I'm a praying president. Every day I say, Lord, please send us a few dollars so that we can continue to fight out here, because there's no rest for. But freedom ain't free. People call our office all the time, and you know what we do is we get memberships. Every branch is required to hold a Freedom Fund banquet, and that generates some money. But those of us that has a little wherewithal, we're able to get, especially when you have times like good after Sterling, people are more apt to give then because they saw the need and they saw the injustice done to that young man and his family. So, you know, it's nothing that we are nobody's budget like we should be, because I want you all to know that everyone at some point in time called the NAACP, either for their mother, their brother, their cousin, their grandchild, somewhere, somehow, they would call the NAACP. And for us to respond, it takes resources. And we just don't have them like some of these other people who has a philanthropic backer, donor. But nationally, we have resources. And so what's going to happen is those resources that we have at the national office are trickling down to the state conferences as well as the local branches. So they have some resources. Hopefully by the end of the year, all the branches within the state conference will have some resources to keep up the fight, because the biggest fight we have this year, as within the election cycle, is getting the vote turnout. And that's going to be crucial because this is a presidential year and also local municipality year, like the mayor of Baton Rouge and the council members, they're up for re-election. And so we need to get resources on the ground to ensure that we get voter participation. As someone alluded to, we can register all the people we want, but we have 1 million or so already registered that don't go vote. And so we want to try to galvanize those, energize those to go to the polls and vote. But one thing you touched on, Reverend Man, is our young people. You know, we have a not only with AXO and Jim is probably Midas. He's done more with AXO over the last 2 or 3 years than I've seen in a while. As a matter of fact, our AXO programs over the last couple of years has received national recognition from our national board as well as our national president for the great work that they do. But in energizing our young people, we have youth councils. That means youth councils that in high schools that are attached to just adult branches as a youth council. And also we have college chapters. And we have about, I'm going to say 18 or more youth and college chapters that are out there energized. They're fired up and they're ready for this work. But we give them work. We don't just tell them to come into the room. No, we let them have a say. So you have to give young people an opportunity to do the work. You have to understand. You have to give them opportunity to speak. You got to give them opportunity to get involved. If you don't, you lose them. Just like in the church. So I just don't say young people. Jim will attest to, and others. I put the check with them. I give them a check. Because if I pour it to them, I'm trying to get out and get somebody in that will continue what was done for me. And so every chance I get, I pour into branch, youth council, and then I send our youth and college to our national convention. All the college chapters and councils throughout the state of Louisiana will come to our convention at no cost. I'll raise the money and I make sure they're there, and because we need them. We need them, and I'm not. I can tell every time we have something that they are there.
Yes, yeah. A couple of things were mentioned. I want people to be able to be in attendance. When is the next banquet that NAACP will have in this region?
I know maybe Valerie can speak to this. I know Orleans has a banquet coming up, if I'm not mistaken, sooner than us. The state convention has its annual state convention. It's always in September. It's the third weekend in September. This year is going to be in Bossier City.
All right.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you for confirming that. Thank you, President McClanahan. Listen, I want to turn to Tori again as we talk about what's happening in the present. What do people have to know about so that they will get engaged, get involved, get their youth involved? What is going on right now that we may not may not be knowledgeable about, but need to be more educated about? Tell us what's going on, Tori, if you would.
Sure. So many things. It's hard to know where to start, but I would say that we have the advantage this year of the national election cycle. Louisiana has typically at least 4 elections a year, sometimes almost a dozen. I think there was 7 last year. There are so many opportunities to vote and to be engaged in Louisiana's election systems, whether it's for representation in DC or on a parish police jury, for the state legislature, whatever it is, there's a very robust election calendar, which can sometimes lead to confusion or voter exhaustion or other issues. But I think in this moment in time in 2024, when more eyes are on the election calendar, when other states are participating, it's really important to lift up what is happening at the top of this ballot this year, but also how many opportunities get more and more localized and what that means for people's power and for the change that they want in their communities. I think one thing to really tie the fight for fair maps into this cycle is just amplifying the fact that Black voters, especially in the state of Louisiana, but young folks are people who have been disillusioned by not feeling like their voices are reflected in policymaking, that their experiences are not reflected in leadership in the state. There will be new opportunities that can truly change the balance of power, whether it's in DC, in the state legislature here, and can impact the issues that we care about most, whether that is funding for education, funding for school lunches, whether it's policies that reflect the future of criminal law enforcement that is about, treating people as human beings and trying to get towards change and resolution and remediation rather than punishment, and spending so much money on caging people rather than seeing truth and justice and opportunity when we actually resource communities and when we care about people as our brothers and sisters and siblings. There are so many things, whether it's through a theological perspective, whether it's through, the lens of your wallet and how you want your tax dollars spent, or how you want your government to invest in you or your children or the next generations. All those decisions are being made in policy making, and they can get down to the most granular level of a pothole that the city can choose to fill in or not, or something as big as an infrastructure bill or the restoration of the Voting Rights Act and a better future for those of us who are fighting for a fair democratic process moving forward in the spirit of those who've marched before us and who carried that torch and got us this far. So I think really trying to use this moment in time and the national conversation around voting rights to highlight that democracy is happening all the time in Louisiana, and the state elections that happened in 2023 are implicating state policy right now. So if folks, are thinking about maybe voting for the presidential election in November, understanding that in a state like Louisiana, you've also got to show up for the runoffs in December. It's a different model. But then you also have to look at that calendar in 2025 and understand that you are enfranchised again and again and again. And if you participate in those elections, that vote holds more and more power, and elected officials are going to be more accountable because they cannot just bank on low turnout or disillusionment or a lack of understanding among the voting base as their way to just sneak into office with no opposition. If we're consistently engaged, we don't take elections off and are constantly holding our elected officials accountable, not only at the ballot box, but in the decisions that they're making at the state capitol right now, in DC right now, or in city halls, then, the democracy truly can come back to the people. So I think trying to get those messages to folks, but then also give them those dates and deadlines so that they know they can keep on participating and participating and participating.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tori. I can't help but to point out through yourself, Tori, through Mr. James Gray, and through President McClanahan, NAACP is just presenting a good just degree of hopefulness and vision of a better tomorrow, from everything from when we fight, we win, to the opportunities that there is in the election, and the more opportunities that there are for people to get engaged, and the more positions in the legislature that can possibly come through engagement. That is the feeling that I'm getting from each one of you, that I think is so poignant and so relevant and needed right now at this moment in our history. So I want to just first thank you for that hopefulness and empowerment that I think has run throughout the history. Well, I know it's run throughout the history of NAACP and is communicated very strongly by each of you. So I hope everybody else is getting that tonight.
Yeah.
Brother
Yeah.
Bannon,
Yeah.
may I say just one thing?
Please.
Many of us are looking at what our new governor is talking about with dismay and saying, how do we let this happen? And part of the answer, and we need to fight from here forward, but on election day in Orleans Parish, which is the largest concentration of Democratic voters, the turnout was 27%. So whatever he does, we let it happen on election day. And there were enough votes in Orleans Parish alone that if we had the kind of turnout our grandparents had when they first got the right to vote, Landry would be our governor. We need to figure out a way to get that kind of spirit back. And we don't need that. We don't need 70%. Though I don't understand why we don't get it. If we could get 50% turnout, if we could get 50% turnout, we could change this state. And that's doable. And some people in the state do it. If you go down the river, the river parishes, they have that turnout. They get 65, 70% turnout sometimes. Baton Rouge doesn't, New Orleans doesn't, Shreveport doesn't. And that's where the big numbers are. Mm-hmm. The river parishes do great compared to us. They don't have the numbers to make the difference. We have the numbers in Baton Rouge, Shreveport, New Orleans to make the difference.
Absolutely. Well said. Very, very good point. Very good point. Thank you for that. And I think President McClanahan, you were going to say something too?
Yes. You know, when Jim talks about the vote, we missed a great opportunity on last year. And it's disheartening that, we did not energize the vote. And so in order for people to remain vote conscious, they have to turn into chronic voters. They have to vote often. And every time they take the vote off, that pulls them into a lull. It's hard to get them back up. And we missed a golden opportunity last year, not like in previous years too. Mr. Gray was spot on to get our numbers out, because anytime we can elect a Democratic governor in the deep South, we have the ability to do it not only once, but again and again. But it comes through people going from their homes, their offices to the polls to vote. And so we remain steadfast in the things that we talk about when we go anywhere. The first thing, and maybe the only thing I talk about, is voting.
That's right.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Hi, Pastor Manny. It's time for questions and comments.
This time is going so fast, Valerie. Thank you for your time there. Let's get to those questions.
Okay, I have some questions. I see the hands, but I have some questions in the chat was first. So I will go to the chat to Jeff. Jeff, you want to ask your question or you want me to read it?
I can ask it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's to Victoria or Tori. The challenge to the new district in the congressional district, where do you see that going? Do you see the district being successfully challenged? And would we at least have the opportunity before it's challenged to have an election in that new district?
So great questions. This is really the core of what our team and clients have been grappling with since a recent lawsuit was filed against the new map that the legislature enacted in January, which creates a second majority Black district in addition to District 2, which is based around New Orleans. This new district, now Congressional District 6, would bridge parts of North Baton Rouge up through Alexandria and Shreveport to create a new majority Black district along the Red River and I-49 corridor. So the challenge that's been lodged against it, unlike our challenge to the old map, which was under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which is about ensuring that maps don't dilute the voting power of a protected minority group. This challenge is under a theory of racial gerrymandering, which is a constitutional claim which essentially says you cannot let race and the race of voters predominate and be really your first, foremost, and most dominant consideration when drawing maps. So the plaintiffs here are non-African American voters who are essentially saying that the map that the legislature passed was motivated by race, and they're even going further to try to attack our claims and say that it's really not possible to create a map that creates a second Black majority district without putting race first and foremost. Now I can say, and we've represented this, I'll disclaim that LDF on behalf of our clients in the Robinson litigation, including the NAACP, including individual folks like Dr. Nairn, have moved to intervene in that litigation as defendants to essentially say that this racial gerrymandering claim is not substantiated by the record, and the way that they're arguing it truly contorts the law. So what the Supreme Court has essentially shown and stood by is that you can, it's not a racial gerrymander if race is not the predominating factor. And I was at the legislature for every single day of that special session and tuning into any of the public commentary around it, let alone the statements made by the legislators. And it was very clear that race was not the preferences and power of Black voters were not the motivating factor here. Part of the evidence for that is that we, as the plaintiff groups, presented other maps and had been fighting for other maps. You had probably 60 Black community members come to the Capitol and advocate for a different map, which instead would have, we believe, performed better on some of the other traditional redistricting principles, but also united the Delta and the Northeast portions of the state with Baton Rouge to create this second district. So the legislature had all these different options for how to create a map. They've had options to create a VRA compliant map for years, and instead they chose to configure the lines in these other ways. And then they said on the record, it was for political reasons. It was to achieve their political objectives. They wanted to protect Representative Letlow and ensure her political future. They wanted to make sure the Speaker of the House and the majority leader in DC were in safe Republican districts. They were very candid about that. And they also highlighted, that there are multiple different ways to create a second majority Black district to comply with the VRA. And there are other communities, and we agree with this, beyond, the Delta parishes and the configuration we made for our second district, but also represented in that I-49 corridor along the Red River that have shared needs and interests, shared agriculture, institutions, schools, industry. And so that's another, reason for creating the district that way versus other permutations. But it's hard to say in those mix of factors and in the very candid discussion around politics and partisanship and those preferences, it's disingenuous in our belief to say that race was the predominant factor here. So if you're just grounded in the law and the facts, my hope is that this case doesn't get very far. My hope is that we're able to intervene and best represent a path forward for our clients. What I will say is that if the courts interpret the record differently and decide that this map was motivated by race, it's our firm belief, based off precedent and principles of fairness, that it doesn't mean that a map that has also been ruled to be discriminatory under the VRA, the map that was in place for the 2022 elections, should go back in place. Instead, there should be another remedial process. And if maybe we could see the map that we've been advocating for years enacted instead. So we will do everything in our power to ensure that Black voters are represented fairly and have an opportunity to elect their candidates of choice in 2 districts this year. There are going to be, plot twists and turns between now and November, but we are actively working to engage in this litigation and defend the very important decision we got on Section 2 through our Robinson litigation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria. Next, we have Lane. Lane had a question in the chat before she raised her hand. In after Lane, we have Mama Fatima. So Lane, you next. You're on mute, dear.
There we go. I'm curious about Governor Landry's initiative to and the legislature's now vote approval to put a constitutional amendment on the next election to make the Louisiana Supreme Court, I think it's all Louisiana Supreme Court justices elected by statewide vote. Does that effectively eliminate majority Black districts and any chance, or a majority Black district and any chance for a Black Chief Justice?
So
yeah, thank you, Victoria.
yeah, there's a few different items that have moved or conversations that have started around the Supreme Court. So let me try to break those down. You're correct that during the special redistricting session, there was a bill that was aimed at putting a constitutional amendment on the ballot to shift to an at-large model for Supreme Court seats. That bill did not advance to through that process. So it's been filed, but as of right now, and mind you, there's a whole regular session where these things could come back into play, but that bill did not get through the process the same way that the congressional map did during that special session. I will flag, though, that a shift to an at-large voting model for the Supreme Court is incredibly worrisome because of how right now the districts provide for opportunities for Black voters to elect their candidates of choice, because of the way that we have seen the preferences of Black voters constantly diluted in offices at the statewide level in those elections. So definitely a worrisome item to have seen throughout the process, but as of right now, not something that we're contending with this year, unless it comes out of the regular session. At the same time, though, there are multiple different lawsuits in play regarding the Supreme Court map. As I mentioned, the Chisholm litigation, which is the consent decree that LDF fought for to create and now defend the one majority Black district centered in New Orleans, is going to be reheard en banc. A favorable decision we got from the district court, and then a panel of 3 judges to maintain that consent decree is now going to be heard by the full Fifth Circuit in the months ahead. So that is one thing that we're watching, whether or not the consent decree will stay in place. And then separately, this NAACP litigation carried by the Lawyers Committee is also set for trial in an attempt to create a second majority Black district. But the caveat that I'll add there is the call of the session for this crime-related session included an item 14, about potential settlement in that litigation, a way to get approval for a settlement that could come regarding the creation of a second majority Black district. There were efforts to get a map through during the redistricting session in January that fell short of final passage for a few different reasons. There was a map that was supported by 5 of the justices for the Supreme Court that seemed to have the support of Governor Landry, that due to some last minute amendments and some tension, I think, between legislative leadership and the proponents of that bill, didn't get through to final passage or final vote. But also, even if that bill was in very good position, efforts to change Supreme Court districts have a higher threshold for the vote needed in the legislature for final passage. We only needed a sheer majority, 50% plus 1, to get a congressional map through. You need a 2/3 majority of the legislature to get a Supreme Court map through. So that effort failed to, through the regular legislative process, get a Supreme Court map done. It might be, resuscitated in the regular session, or we might see some effort towards essentially rubber stamping a settlement that the defendants at the state level and the plaintiffs in that litigation will come to. So there's more to be seen potentially in just the days ahead on the Supreme Court. But in terms of that concern about an at-large model and shift, your inclination to kind of perk up and say, hey, what does that actually mean, is spot on. I think we have to be very attentive to the structural changes that could be proposed for the Supreme Court, but there's some moving pieces in between, and we'll just have to keep our eyes on both the cases, but the regular session as well, to see if there's anything else that comes out around it.
Okay, I think President Mike, you here want to say something?
Yeah, I do. But Tori explained it well. There were times during the last regular session last year where they wanted to expand the court to a 15-member court. And, I shot that down because, in that 15-member court, they were given white justice more power because they took no seats from them at all. And so we told them, you need to go back to the drawing board because at what we have now, 7-member court. You're right, Tori. The NAACP want to lead plaintiffs. We're talking settlement right now. And Jeff Landry, the governor, did put that in his call to settle that particular lawsuit. Once he agrees to settle it, I think that would help us down the road because clearly we have the legislature's approval as well as the governor's approval. And if it meets our standard, we'll be able to prove it and have 2 Supreme Court justices on 2 Black Supreme Court justices on the Louisiana Supreme Court. But the other question was she asked was, when will we be able to get another Black Chief Justice? I think, I don't know how they're set up, but it won't be no time soon because I think it's based upon seniority, how it goes down. So I remember when Justice Burnett Johnson, she had to fight her own colleagues. I think they were squabbling over a few months. She was a justice maybe a couple of months prior to the other justice wanted to get. So it's a battle. But if we put some people on the bench itself, clearly at some point in time we'll be able to get the Supreme Court Chief Justice seat again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we have Mama Fatima. You on mute, Mother.
Well, greetings. Haven't seen everybody for a while. What I'm hearing in terms of the efforts that are being made are wonderful. But one concern that I have, and this is not just with the NAACP, this is with our organizations in general. We look for our better money, and we should, and our better educated Black folks, which we should, to lead. But what appears to have happened, and this is not just a New Orleans problem, I'm seeing this everywhere I've been in the country. There is kind of a separation when integration came in. People who could get better housing, get better jobs, move to better neighborhoods out of the hood, so to speak, or the ghetto, did so, and I don't blame them. But here's the problem. The lower income Black communities have become a desert, a very deprived desert. And back in the 90s, the crack epidemic really finished a lot of us off. My concern is that the potential that's being wasted among young people, and there are people, like we're saying, okay, go vote. But if you are worried about how the children are going to eat the next day, you don't have a job, human services is on your back, you don't have time to think about progress. You just like a little hamster spinning on a wheel. I've been there, done that, and to some extent still doing it. And particularly in New Orleans, the housing situation is terrible. And the attitude, I'm not speaking of the leadership that's present in the room, is, well, y'all poor folks ought to be glad that you got somewhere to stay, regardless to how you're being treated. So this is causing, and I was arguing with one of my friends, what are we voting for? Trump gets in, so what? We get either way, we're getting our butt kicked. Excuse my language. My thing is this, is that we need to take a more priority and stronger look at what is happening. And I'm talking about through outreach to our poor Black people in our poor neighborhoods. We have leadership there that is just going to waste. And what is happening with our children is totally criminal. And I think everyone understands this. I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence, but what I'm saying is there needs to be strategic movement so we can get these people that are discouraged back up on their feet and on their way. And they feel like the upper classes of Black people are looking down on them, don't really care. The distrust is horrible. So what I'm saying is that perhaps we can also, in terms of attacking the outside system, look at ourselves internally to see what we can do and kiss and make up with one another and fight the real enemy instead of one another. And I'm saying this because I'm 74 years old. I've been in the movement my entire life, and I have never seen our people this bad off. Okay, in terms of how we're relating to each other. Dr. Benjamin Jealous, he's come out in favor of reparations at this point, which, in terms of something possibly solution oriented. So has Bernice King. But the NAACP, to my knowledge, has no, unless I'm wrong or just don't know, has no reparations committee. This is something we could involve everybody in. You see what I'm saying? There is a national mood swing in favor of reparations because civil rights is being pushed back. A lot of our stronger civil rights leaders are not with us anymore. So now people are kind of looking at reparations.
That's not true.
Oh, wait a minute, Belinda.
Wait a
No,
minute,
come on,
Belinda.
sister.
A lot
Thank
of
you.
our people we're not looking at reparations in terms of self-determination and planning for ourselves. Other people who may want to help us, they're not going to help us if we don't know what we want. We're scattering ourselves in 50 different directions, not talking to each other. And
Thank you.
and so what happens is,
okay,
somebody else starts planning it for us, and that's dangerous.
Okay, thank you for your remarks and your comments, Mother Femima. It's always good to hear from you. It's always good to hear from you. Brother Sweet, Brother Sweet is next. But Brother Sweet, I'm gonna come back to you because our time is very short. But we have Dr. Jones on here, and we also have Mr. James. Mr. James could speak on the AXO I'm gonna say scholarship, and it's the NAACP resource scholarship. But first I want Dr. Jones to speak on his partnership, and he also is over committee, the health committee of the NAACP in New Orleans, and what we are doing here in New Orleans. I know the president, Mike, already know this, but everybody else don't know this. So I'll do respect, President Mike, I want Dr. Jones to speak on what the NAACP is doing in New Orleans for is our health. Can you speak on that, brother? Doctor, I'm sorry.
You call me brother, I don't mind. I'm a brother. And Valerie, thank you so much for having me on. As you all know, I am a pillar in the Justice and Beyond. And I hence know many of your faces. The two gentlemen there, James Gray and Mike McCall. Actually, that's McClanahan. Okay. I thought you were gonna be the other Mike, not Mike, Coleman. I thought it was going to be Coleman. Either way, James Gray has served as a great mentor to me. I consider him a friend. President McClanahan and I have had interactions throughout some difficulties of my life. So I am glad to see you, you both, gentlemen, you both, and everyone on the Zoom. Thank you for hearing me. So about 20 years ago, when I moved to New Orleans, what I recognized immediately was that New Orleans was a city that was completely deprived of appropriate health care. Now, that's not to say that you don't have doctors who are qualified, licensed, credentialed, but that does not equal good health care. Good health care is about access, and it's about attitude. So if you have access to doctors, that's a good thing. But now we get to what's your doctor's attitude towards you. You understand? So it may be unfortunate, but it is real that we are all discriminating. You can say racist, you can say we have our own things that we like, dislike, but what happens, especially in the case of medicine, is that people prefer someone who they relate to. They prefer someone who they look like. They prefer someone that they sound like. They prefer someone from their neighborhood, from their area, a person who is of their same religious background, etc. So when I started working here, what I saw quickly was that the Black people simply were not getting good care. I mean, simply not getting good care. Louisiana is dead last, 50th in the nation for healthcare outcomes. You guys are aware of this. If you're not, you have now been made aware, and that includes me as a culprit. Understand, I'm a physician here, so I am a culprit in attributing to the worst outcomes in the country, 50th. When you look at the United States is 26th among countries that report in terms of healthcare outcomes. We spend twice as much money, and we're still 26th on the list in health outcomes. Now, I can give you guys the way to approach that so you can understand it, but I think you guys intuitively understand what I'm saying. So now the question becomes, okay, Michael Jones, you've got all this information. You claim that you give a crap. What are you gonna do? So 20 years ago when I moved here, I said, I should open a free clinic. When I was in Georgia, we had free clinics. We still have free clinics in Georgia right now. And I don't mean these quasi-free clinics. I'm not going to mention the names, but I'm not talking about the places that you can find pretty much in every poor neighborhood around New Orleans where they say, oh, we're here for the poor. But what they're actually doing is they're getting those poor people in, they're putting them in Medicaid, Medicare, and other programs, and then they're charging those institutions for the care that they deliver. That's not free care, okay? So I said 20 years ago, I need to do free care. Now, as part of my practice, I always gave away free care. It was just a necessity. Someone comes in without money, you can't turn them away. I wouldn't turn them away. So about 6 months ago, Ronald Coleman, the president of the NAACP here in New Orleans, came to me and said, Dr. Jones, would you like to be the chair of our health programs? I said, absolutely. What would you like for me to do? So he explained some things he wanted me to do. I said, well, I'll do all of that. But most importantly, I want to start free clinics. He said, well, Michael, as the president of the NAACP, we oversee about 4 or 5 different parishes. And hence, if you want to put a clinic in every one of those parishes, I'm willing to do it for you. Now, not only did he step up, but he then introduced me to a group of preachers. We all sat down in a room, and within one conversation, this was so surprising for me because I've been talking about this for 20 years. And every time I go to business people, every time I go to legislators, every time I go to religious entities, they give me so many excuses about why they can't do it. I'm volunteering my free service. I'm not going to get paid. So if I'm volunteering my free service, why is it we can't make this happen? Okay. So at that meeting, a reverend by the name of Demetrius Phillips offered to me and gave me his 1,200 square foot facility that we have already cleaned out and reconstructed into a clinic. So presently, ladies and gentlemen, not next week, not next month, not next year, we presently have a free clinic in New Orleans at 1835 Bienville Drive, right behind the church that sponsored it, the St. James Historic Church, which is at 222 North Roman. So I cannot by any means say that this is something that Michael Jones did. This is something that Michael Jones was allowed to do through the NAACP and through St. James Historic Church. And I am very glad that this is what's happening, but I'm taking it further, okay? I've already approached individuals in Georgia. I travel between Georgia and Louisiana now, okay? My family's in Georgia, I'm in Louisiana sometimes. I travel between Georgia and Louisiana. I've already discussed with 2 preachers in Georgia. They want to do the free clinics. I've also been up to North Louisiana, to Mansfield and to Coachella. And the two mayors in those places have said they want me to put free clinics up there. So we can do this. We are doing this. And I'm very happy to have anyone join in the efforts. But also understand, this is free. You come in through the door, you get evaluated by me, you get your testing done if it's something that I can do in-house, which should include EKGs, spirometries, and echocardiograms, and simple testing like urine drug screening or finger sticking for diabetes. And at the end of that visit, you get a prescription, you leave, you have no charge whatsoever. And additionally, this is completely confidential care. Since I'm not doing this under the auspices of a government program, since I'm not billing a government program, your information is your information. No one is going to be able to just come in, review, and audit my private medical records that are your privately held medical records. If we get sued or something like that, obviously they can subpoena the records. But this is truly free. You don't have to worry about if you came in for, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. If you came in for an STD and I treated you, that somehow somebody else out there is going to get a hold of this. That's not the way this goes. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I hope you all can join me in doing. And I welcome any assistance. It can be financial. Absolutely, we're going to need money at some point, but it can be financial or it can just be volunteerism. Volunteerism will be enough.
Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you, Dr. Jones. Can you put your contact information in the chat for everybody can get your contact information in case they have any questions or they want to volunteer or they want to assist you about it, they can contact you directly. Next, thank you so much. So next, we're gonna ask everybody if you have time, because it really is time for us to go. But we're gonna ask everybody if you have time, especially the speakers. Can you give us like 10 more minutes? But we understand if you have time to go because we want Mr. James to give us information about the AXO scholarship for the youth and the NAACP scholarship resource also for the youth, and also let everybody know about the Black History program that will be this Sunday at 2:00 at St. James, Historic St. James Church on North Roman, and we will be highlighting the AXO students. Thank you. Keep it down to like 5 minutes, please, Mr. James.
I can spend 5 minutes, but I'll be quick. First of all, what we're doing in conjunction with the youth program and I guess with the AXO kid is we're just trying to make kids aware of scholarships. Actually, there's only one scholarship controlled by the NAACP AXO, and that's unfortunately, I think, just for girls. It's a writing contest, and 40 girls are going to get a $10,000 scholarship. And you really should have entered already. We spent a lot of time telling people about a FOSSI scholarship, FOSSA scholarship, which is a $40,000 scholarship to a kid who's going to a historically Black school majoring in STEM. Deadline for that this year has passed. It was January 31st. But we're also trying to make people aware there are tons of other scholarships out there that kids just don't know about. The biggest collection of them is in the Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund. They sort of manage numerous scholarships that kids should look at, and there's going to be something there you can apply for. And we've tried to get that word out repeatedly to the schools here in Orleans Parish. I would say to Ms. Smith, you talked about reaching out to everyone. And I don't want to badmouth the people who came before me with AXO, but I'm told the biggest crew of kids they ever had was 6. The most they would normally take the national would be 2. I'm telling you, we have over 200 kids. That's because we're reaching out to every kid at every school. We have written every school in Orleans Parish. That includes all of the public schools in Orleans Parish, 5 or 6 times as of right now, recruiting kids. And we have a bunch of kids from those schools. For the kids we had last year, I think we only had one private school kid to go to nationals with us. I think all the rest of them were public school kids. So what you say about not allowing a separation between middle class folks and poor folks is absolutely correct. At least in the little things that we are touching, we are trying to make sure, just as Dr. Jones talked about, that we are trying to help those who need the most help. And I think everyone should do that, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chan. You kept it down. I appreciate it. I want to say my president, he had took his mute out. He had wanted to say a remark. He probably had to leave out.
He had to leave.
Okay. All right. Next we have we have Raymond have a question. Then the last one will be Belinda. Then we'll be through. So Raymond had a question. I am so thankful for you, Mr. Sweet, for your patience. Well, Raymond had a question, had two really, about the Louisiana Democratic Party in New Orleans. He said, can anyone point out the actual work for the Louisiana Democratic Party did in New Orleans? So
we don't have to belabor that, Ms. Val. Ms. Jefferson, we don't have to do that.
Okay. All right then. I just didn't want you to think that we pass you up, because we're not gonna pass up Mr. Sweet. Your name speak for you, baby. So next we have Belinda. Belinda is the last one, so we're gonna ask Belinda come and ask her question.
Yeah, Valerie, first of all, I want to thank you for putting on this forum. It's been a great forum. I had people listening and they were sharing with me. I also want to appreciate Dr. Jones. I think that is some phenomenal work that he's doing. I had a question for Mike, but Dr. Jones, have you considered, I know when I was in school, we used to have like mobile clinics that went around and into the community. Have you considered anything such as that?
Yes, I have considered it, but that at present is not what I plan to do. The plan right now is to put together 5 clinics in and around Louisiana that can be staffed by capable and qualified physicians at least 2 days out of the week, and the other 3 days we'll have the volunteers getting things together for these individuals administratively. As we know, it's not just a matter of taking care of that person, that one person who came in sick. What we intend to do, and I urge everyone to think that any idea you have, it may be a good idea, but we don't just want good ideas. I don't just want good ideas. I want great ideas. And a great idea will branch off into 5 or 6 tentacles rather than just one tentacle. So imagine when I'm not there in the office, but someone comes by and says, hey, we want to come in and see you at some point. My staff now gets to take an accounting of that person's home without that person being worried that the police are going to come in. We get to find out, are there minor children at home who aren't being taken care of? We get to find out whether or not these people are experiencing food instability. We get to find out whether or not these people are educated and employed. So that we're going to use this clinic not simply to take care of people, but as a true social resource, that we're going to make sure that our administrators are able to do those other things. Now, Belinda, you bring up something very good, because I have been in contact with the lady over the years, and she somehow fell out of my catchment. She hasn't called me back for a number of months, but she got a grant for mobile units in the Baton Rouge area and the Amite community. She tells me that she was given some beautiful number for her very first grant that was something like $150,000 to send out mobile units. And because her proposal was such a good proposal, they basically agreed that once she finished a year of that proposal, using that money and showing that she could get actual results, this is the federal government, that they were going to give her $10 million to spread it out and do even more. I don't have the time, quite honestly, to chase down that portion of things. And I personally do not want to get in bed with the federal government again, okay? But if there is an entity that wishes to partner with us and get this sort of thing done, that mobile unit, blah, 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 I'll be glad to be a provider for you.
Absolutely. You know, my daughter just got her PhD. She's a doctor in Kentucky. So, and I really want her to come back home because there is a dire need, you know, here in Louisiana for, you know, African-American doctors. And I would love for you to talk with her, Dr. Jones, about that ideal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really would appreciate that. So thank you so much. I think this is really good. Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you, Belinda, for joining us. Because you're a mighty leader yourself. Thank you. We
Yeah, that's
also
right. I didn't want you know, Miss Smith to leave me out. I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
no,
You know, I'm still alive and
she,
well. And
yeah, she's good. She's good. Okay, now we at the end of the forum. We asking anyone, do they have any announcement? Please put it in your chat. If we have Victoria still on here and we have Mr. James still on here, do y'all have any closing remarks? While they doing their closing remarks, please add your announcement in the forum, please. Thank you. Okay, Victoria. Mr. James gonna be a gentleman, Victoria. He gonna let the ladies go first.
No, just gratitude. I feel like we had a great conversation tonight. I hope that you're all able to continue to follow along as we fight for fair maps, but truly just engage communities around exercising their power and holding elected officials accountable to real change. So thank you for letting me be a part of this conversation and the important work you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. James.
Can I
Mr. James,
get her information?
Mr. James, Dr. Jones, you know I got to let you have the last word, Dr. Jones. Yeah. Dr. Jones put his information in the chat after Mr. James, then Dr. Jones, and we're gonna close out. We're gonna close out just like we open up. Okay. Thank you.
We still have the announcement. Okay. Sorry.
I welcome the opportunity of being here. Last time I was at Justice Beyond, I got put out. I was a city councilman, and I don't know if anyone's around who was then, but there was a concern about the chlorine in the pools, something. And but at any rate, I think we have a lot of opportunities right now. I think we have a chance of doing some good. We have a lot of risk facing us, and instead of us focusing on who's not doing what, we ought to all try to figure out, where can I help? What can I go do? Because there's so much to be done that we've not yet done. There's plenty of places that you could be in charge. You want to come help.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all just contact the
Hi, Mr.
NAACP.
Gray. How you doing? This is Belinda. I just wanted to say hello.
Okay, Miss Parker.
Hey, how you doing, Belinda?
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we have the last remark by Dr. Jones. Then we're going to, I think Brooke has something to say. Then we're going to close out. Okay, Dr. Jones. You're on mute. You're on mute. Okay.
Unmute yourself.
I gotcha. Okay, people. Okay, so look, I actually don't have anything to say in closing, but I did want to get Tori's information. So Tori, you see my cell phone in the chat, I hope, and you can just send me your information there, because there actually is a number of things that I would like to work with you on in regards to this racial justice stuff. The other aspect, remember guys, I said that this clinic and clinics like it, they should not just serve one function. They should be able to serve multiple functions. So we've already been given access to fentanyl test strips and Narcan. And if you guys aren't familiar with Narcan, Narcan is the substance that you use to reverse opiate overdose, right? So we're going to be able to, and it's already set with the government. It's totally legal for us to do this. There is no liability. So we're able to just give this out. So you can have people come to our clinics once I give you the date that, yes, come in. Okay, y'all can have people come to the clinic and actually get these items, Narcan and fentanyl test strips. Fentanyl test strips, you touch whatever drug you're using and you know whether or not it's fentanyl in it. Now, the reason that that is important to me, Tori, is that you and I know that everything flows downhill in regards to the justice system. So when we got these people coming in, we can also start to instruct these people about how they avoid getting hooked on drugs. We can also educate them to some degree about the justice system, and therefore make sure we're funneling people who have legitimate concerns about racial injustice when it comes to the judicial system. We can then funnel them into the right people. So I would love it if you and I can get together at some point and talk about some of these things, Tori.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So, Brooke, close us out, Brooke.
I just wanted to sort of highlight the fact that the Southern University Law Center, the Black Law Students Association, and co-sponsors, and Justice and Beyond is also co-sponsoring this, are presenting an evening with the Black Panthers, some of the original Black Panther Party. And it'll be this Thursday, the 22nd at 5 p.m. And in the chat, you'll see the Zoom ID and the passcode. And Orissa, I think, sort of arranged the title anyway, from the greatest threat to national security to Black History Month icons. I think it's a wonderful thing to have been alive all these years and to see the change.
Okay, good. Well, good announcement. Okay, we have a brother have his hand up. I don't see his name though.
Good evening, everyone. Woodrow Parker.
Okay.
Hi, brother James. How you doing? Calling you, everyone. Good evening. I'm calling you from St. Mary Parish. I am DSCC representing the B seat of the 50th district, and also a delegate for the Louisiana Democratic Party. I have enclosed tonight a map of the latest program. And if you bring this up, everyone, I believe New Orleans is April 1st. This is Coffee with Clergymen and the Community. Coffee with Clergymen and the Community. Events will be from 7:30 to 9 a.m. in the morning, except for April the 8th. And I believe that one will be from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. New Orleans is scheduled for April the 8th. So please note that on your in your calendar. April the 8th is New Orleans. Slidell is March the 11th. Baton Rouge is March the 25th. And so I'll just leave that for now. Please notate that if you do not have this map, I will gladly send that to you. My phone number is 504-617-5881. Email address is parkerwoodrow@yahoo.com. That's PARKERWOODROW@yahoo.com. If you had not received the phone number or email address, refer to the other Miss Parker, Melinda Parker, for my information. Have a great evening, everyone.
And I
Thank
will
you.
make sure you get it.
Thank you. So we're going to close out. We thank everyone for your time. We kept you over 18 minutes. So please forgive us, forgive our heart and our mind and our soul. So everyone that's settled for just 1 minute. Thank you, Lord, for this night. Thank you, Lord, for all you do. Yes,
before
ma'am.
you go to prayer, I'm sorry to come in at the last minute. I
Mhm.
just wanted to say hello to everyone. It's been a long time. This is Sylvia McKenzie. I'm not going to hold you. It was wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvia. It's good to hear your voice.
Sylvia. We love you.
Love you too, my love.
Oh, my gracious Father in heaven, Lord God, we come to you with joy in our heart because we just heard from our sister that we haven't heard from in a long time, Sister Sylvia. We thank you for this opportunity, this platform that you bless us to have, that the African American, we can speak our voice. Our voice have a loud sound. We thank you for this platform of Justice Beyond. We thank you for all you're doing and all you will do. We thank you for the free clinic. We thank you for the NAACP. We thank you for the freedom fighters, Lord God, in different organizations. We thank you for your voice, Lord God, for justice. Justice shall live. Justice shall speak. And justice shall stand. We thank you. We give you all the glory and all the praise. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen, everybody. You all have a
And
good
I
night.
just put my
Be safe.
information in the chat for everybody.
Okay.
Amen.
Amen.
And I also want to mention that Mr. Parker is running for the DSCC chair. So you can't vote for him, but you definitely can support him.
Amen.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
That's good
all.
news, young
Good
brother.
meeting.
I'm glad to hear that.
Hey,
Okay.
Mr. Gray, how you doing, Mr. Gray?
I'm doing good.
You know who you're talking to, Mr. Gray?
Say again?
Do you know who you're speaking with? This is Sylvia McKenzie in the Rosedale neighborhood.
Oh, I know who you are.
What district
I recognize the
you
voice,
in?
part I can read.
Okay. All right.
All right. Good night, everybody.
What district are you in?
The 50th district.
50th district, everybody. So if you have family, 50, you have family friends that live in the 50th district, they can vote for Mr. Woodrow Parker.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you,
He's
Mr.
a
Woodrow
great
Parker.
man.
Good evening.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.